The sweetest girl on campus rushed to my front door, braving a massive downpour just to spend the night with me. But like a total fool, I turned her away. The very next day, she was brutally murdered in the alley right next to my house. Ever since that moment, I've been absolutely consumed by guilt. After busting my ass to get into the police academy, I frantically hunted for the real killer. But that torrential rain had washed away every single piece of evidence. I couldn't find a single trace for 10 whole years. But then, a sudden, unexpected bolt of lightning sent me right back to this exact fork in the road of fate. Ethan, I heard your parents are away on business, and you're the only one home. Could you let me stay at your place for a few days? I can do chores to make up for it. I stared at the girl standing right in front of me, instinctively reaching out to touch her face. Chloe instinctively wanted to dodge, but desperately needing my help, she forced herself to stand perfectly still. A freezing cold sensation met my fingertips. Her slight, trembling reaction clearly told me one thing: she was actually still alive. I really did come back. I'm sorry. Chloe stammered, hurriedly backing away. Suddenly, her foot slipped, and she started falling backward. I moved lightning fast, catching her by the waist and pulling her straight into my arms. Amidst the roaring sound of the pouring rain, a heavy silence fell between the two of us. She completely froze in my embrace, barely daring to breathe. I quickly let go of her and stepped back into the edge of the light. You just looked so cold. I instinctively wanted to give you some warmth. I'm sorry. She blushed. I'm fine. I immediately stepped aside to welcome her inside. Looking at her pale, bloodless face, my thoughts couldn't help but race at 1,000,000 miles an hour. In my past life, after committing this horrific crime in Astro City, the killer vanished without a single trace. This time, I not only have to save her, but I'm going to use my 10 years of criminal investigation experience to catch the real killer red-handed tonight. Chloe stood anxiously in the entryway, nervously tugging at the wet hem of her shirt. Seeing me turn around to grab her some slippers, she grew even more flustered. My socks are soaked. I'll ruin your slippers. I can just go in barefoot. I'll mop the floor for you later. Sharing a room late at night as a lone guy and girl, coupled with being completely soaked to the bone, plunged her into extreme unease. She dug her nails deep into her palms, desperately forcing herself to calm down. While my back was turned, she quickly scanned her surroundings out of the corner of her eye. It wasn't until she noticed the hot tea on the coffee table and the messy cardboard boxes that her tense shoulders finally relaxed a bit. Here's a towel for your hair. Use this first if you don't mind. Could you also lend me some clothes? Mine are a bit wet. Only then did I notice that she was tightly clutching her soaking wet blouse to her chest. Since you have to change anyway, why don't you take a hot bath? Otherwise, you might catch a cold from the chill. The guest room doesn't have a bathtub, so just use the bathroom in my room. I'll go turn on the hot water for you. Hearing that she would be bathing in my personal bathroom, Chloe lowered her head in deep embarrassment, replying in a voice as soft as a whisper. The sound of rushing water soon echoed from the bathroom. Chloe watched my busy figure, finally gathering the courage to speak up. Ethan. Yeah? Just tell me what's on your mind. You want to ask why I haven't asked for the real reason you're staying over? Chloe looked up in total surprise, nodding her head with wide eyes full of curiosity. A girl as incredibly beautiful as you, knocking on a guy's door for shelter in the middle of a massive storm, must have a serious reason she just can't avoid. Since it's clearly not convenient to talk about, it would be totally rude of me to pry. Hearing those gentle words, Chloe's eyes immediately welled up with tears. The water temperature is all set. I stood up, walked slowly over to her, and suddenly braced my hand against the wall right next to her ear, completely trapping her in my space. I'm not worried about you having any bad intentions, I whispered. But aren't you afraid that by staying here, I might try something inappropriate with you? Chloe leaned against the wall, gently biting her bottom lip, as a sudden wave of warmth surged through her body. I trust you, she replied, her beautiful eyes staring boldly right back into mine. That single, honest answer completely killed any room for me to keep testing her. Remembering that I still had a killer to catch tonight, I smiled gently and pulled my hand back. Go take your bath. Here are some clean clothes to change into. With your size, this shirt can totally double as a dress. It'll do for now while yours are being washed. We'll toss them in the washer and then the dryer, and they'll be dry in absolutely no time. Thank you, Chloe said softly. turning to enter the bathroom. That thank you was partly for letting her stay, and partly for my genuine understanding and tolerance. As I stood there, listening to the sound of the shower running from the bathroom, I flashed a warm smile, spun on my heel, and left the bedroom to brew up some hot ginger tea. Minutes later, the bathroom door creaked open, and Chloe stepped out, practically swallowed whole by my oversized hoodie. Her cheeks were beautifully flushed, radiating a soft, rosy pink from the lingering steam, while the hoodie stopped just short of her knees, revealing her fair skin. "I left some slippers out for you," I told her. Chloe slid her feet into the warm, fuzzy slippers, and the last of her awkward shyness seemed to just melt away. The second she stepped out of the bedroom, the sweet, comforting aroma of honey ginger soup instantly wrapped around her. I walked over with a steaming mug in hand, but my eyes accidentally swept across the wide collar of her hoodie. My Adam's apple bobbed heavily in my throat. "Here, drink some of this ginger soup." Chloe took the mug, sipping the hot liquid down in small, delicate gulps. "Should I whip up some noodles for you? Would that be too much trouble?" she asked hesitantly. "What trouble? It literally only takes a few minutes. Just grab a seat and relax first. I'll fry up 2 eggs to go with it." Just as I turned to stand up, I felt a tiny hand grab my shirt, pulling me back. "I know how to fry eggs." "You know. Let me help out too," she offered. Once we got into the kitchen, my lightning-fast knife skills completely caught Chloe off guard. In mere seconds on the cutting board, perfectly uniform slices of juicy tomatoes and savory ham were prepped and ready to go. Chloe hopped up onto a small step stool, rising up on her tiptoes to grab the egg carton from the very top shelf. As she stretched upward, the hem of that oversized hoodie instantly rode dangerously high. I caught a quick glimpse out of the corner of my eye, and my face immediately flushed a deep, burning red. Chloe caught my stare and panicked, hurriedly reaching down to yank the hem lower, but the sudden movement made her completely lose her balance on the tiny stool. I lunged forward in a flash to steady her from behind, but my palm accidentally slipped, landing square on a spot I definitely shouldn't have been touching. Her whole body went totally weak, and she tumbled backward right into my arms. In that split second, the masculine scent of my sandalwood mixed perfectly with the sweet citrus of her body wash. We both froze, completely solid, stuck in that position until the boiling water from the soup pot angrily bubbled over, splashing out and finally snapping the heavy, romantic silence. I jerked my hand back like I'd touched fire, stepping a safe half-foot away, and awkwardly shoved a slotted spoon right into her hand. You stir. I'll grab the eggs." As I spun around, I caught a glimpse in the mirror. My own ears were burning a bright, glowing crimson. It suddenly hit me that for all these years, it wasn't that I didn't care about girls at all. It was just that absolutely no one had ever made my heart hammer against my ribs quite like this. Chloe, her face blushing furiously, ducked her head down and focused intently on stirring the noodles. Thank God the loud, sizzling pop from the hot pot perfectly drowned out the frantic, pounding roar of her racing heartbeat. The mouth-watering smell of tomato noodle soup quickly filled every corner of the kitchen. I carried the bowls over to the table, doing my best to dodge her slightly trembling fingertips. "Careful, it's super hot. Go ahead and change the channel to whatever you feel like watching." The exact second the TV screen flickered to life, Chloe's grip on her chopsticks turned white-knuckled. Out of nowhere, the screen boldly displayed the study materials I had completely forgotten to close out of. The scenes playing out were insanely explicit, to say the least. I let out a painfully awkward cough, frantically mashing the remote to switch over to the on-demand menu. By some miracle, I clicked straight onto an episode of Crayon Shin-chan. Oh man, I almost forgot about that. Back in the day, I was so utterly terrified of getting caught watching that spicy stuff that I actually refused to let the gorgeous campus belle step foot in my room. Thank God for all the years of thick-skinned experience I'd built up since then. With skin like armor now, I totally played it cool, not blushing or missing a single beat as I instantly clicked out of the tab. Chloe mercifully jumped in to quickly change the subject. "I honestly had no idea you were such an amazing cook." I grabbed a tissue and gently dabbed away the tiny, glistening beads of sweat that had formed on the tip of her nose. "You're breaking a sweat. That's a good thing. It means the chill is finally leaving your body. Take your time eating. There's still plenty more in the pot if you want it." She zeroed in entirely on devouring her noodles, polishing off every last bite and drop of savory broth, looking absolutely, completely satisfied. Are you seriously full after just one bowl? The absolute second she finished speaking, a massive, deafening crack of thunder boomed violently right outside the window. My eyes instinctively shot toward the wall clock. It read exactly 9:57. There was only a terrifying half hour left before the brutal crime took place in my past life. In this life, I absolutely had to unmask that killer's true identity. Time was bleeding away fast. I quickly started getting ready to head out into the storm and investigate near the imminent crime scene. I grabbed a glass of water and a warm blanket, carefully draping it over her shoulders. Since you're full, just chill out and watch TV in the living room for a bit. Leave the dirty dishes right there. I'll take care of washing them as soon as I get back. I'm going to run out real quick and grab a late-night snack. I'll be back in a flash. Wait, you're going out in this crazy pouring rain? She asked, worried. It's totally fine. The place is super close by. Just as my hand hit the doorknob, I froze in my tracks and spun back around to face her, my gut twisted with worry. What if the criminal had meticulously planned this out? What if they had actually followed her and were lurking in the shadows outside right now? Listen to me. Until I get back, absolutely do not open this door for anyone who rings that doorbell. I have my own keys on me, so I definitely won't be ringing the bell, okay? Hearing my deadly serious tone, Chloe nodded obediently like a scared little kitten, wrapping herself even tighter in the cozy safety of the blanket. As the heavy door clicked shut behind me, she stared out into the empty room, curling up tight on the sofa to quietly wait for my return. I popped open my solid black umbrella and marched out into the relentless, pouring rain. I shot a hard look at my waterproof watch. The digital numbers read exactly 9:58 p.m. In my past life, the medical examiner estimated that Chloe's tragic time of death was roughly 10:30 p.m. My target tonight was the 24-hour convenience store, the exact spot she was fated to walk past in my previous life. Back then, Chloe had borrowed an umbrella from that very store and grabbed a quick bite, right before wandering into that cursed alley. Even though she was safely tucked away at my place tonight, I couldn't take any chances. I had to make absolutely sure the timeline didn't pull some sick cosmic correction and force someone else to die in her place. I would never let that happen. Not again. Walking through the freezing rain, I pulled out my phone to check the live security feed from my apartment. On the screen, Chloe was curled up on the sofa with her knees pulled to her chest, just watching TV. Thank God. She was safe inside and hadn't wandered off. I picked up my pace, but just as I closed in on the convenience store, a muffled groan echoed from the dumpster at the edge of the alley. A frail, slender figure was curled up in the dirt. A pack of street thugs had him surrounded, arrogantly kicking and punching him into the mud as they demanded to know what he was hiding in his hands. The guy pinned to the ground was clutching a light gray handkerchief for dear life, while a battered tin box lay discarded in the puddles beside him. One look was all it took. It was Leo, my eccentric classmate who was always at the bottom of the food chain, constantly getting bullied. Hearing my furious shout, the punks snapped their heads around, all the color instantly draining from their faces. Thanks to my parents' heavy-hitting influence in Astro City, trash like them were absolutely terrified of crossing me. Before I even lowered my umbrella, they scattered in a blind panic like they had just seen a ghost, leaving nothing behind but the heavy rain drumming against the alley's tin awning. I knelt down, holding my umbrella steady over Leo's trembling body. Hey, are you okay? Do you need me to get you to a hospital? I noticed an old burn scar on his wrist. I reached out a hand to help him up, but he flinched backward like he'd just been electrocuted. His tin box clattered violently against the brick wall, spilling a handful of crayons and a half-empty bag of cat food straight into the muddy water. Thanks, he mumbled under his breath, keeping his head down as he scrambled to grab his wet backpack. His soaking wet bangs clung to his face, covering the tear mole by his eye. But then, I noticed it. The crevices under his left fingernails were stained with a dark, crusted brown residue. It looked exactly like dried blood. It's pouring buckets out here, and you're really out feeding stray cats? Leo just gave a weak grunt of agreement before a violent coughing fit ripped through him, his frail shoulders shaking in the freezing rain. I stripped off my jacket and tossed it over him. Put it on. Didn't your mom leave for another business trip? If you catch pneumonia out here, who's going to take care of your little brother? But right as I said that, it hit me. The surveillance footage from my past life suddenly flashed through my mind like a lightning bolt. Before she died, Chloe had spotted something outside this exact convenience store. Seeing Leo here right now, all the puzzle pieces snapped into place. Chloe must have seen Leo getting jumped. Every single detail from that tragic night flooded my brain. Think about it. If in my past life, Chloe had run out of the store to stop these guys, a beautiful, soaking wet girl like her would have easily turned their violent bullying into twisted harassment. I racked my brain, trying to remember how Leo looked on the Monday after she died. His injuries back then, they were way worse than what he had just now. Yet, he barely reacted when news of Chloe's murder broke. Wait. That meant in my past life, he must have fought desperately to hold those thugs back, buying Chloe just enough time to escape them. And if she escaped them, then the real killer who got her later was someone else entirely. My mind raced through the deduction, and I immediately locked onto the most crucial piece of the puzzle, the murder weapon. On a torrential night like this, whoever was walking around carrying that fatal knife was the prime suspect. And then it dawned on me. Those 3 thugs could very well be carrying knives right now. Regret hit me like a truck for letting them walk away. As for the battered Leo, he survived all the way to graduation in my last life, so I knew he'd be fine for now. If you can stand, hurry up and get home. I was just about to sprint off, but I paused, glancing down at Leo's shattered umbrella. Without a second thought, I shoved my own black umbrella right into his hands. Yours is trashed. Take mine. I've got urgent business to handle, so I can't walk you back. Stay sharp and go straight home. Before Leo could even utter a word of protest, I threw myself back into the torrential downpour, sprinting through the dark until I completely vanished from his sight. The rain was coming down way too hard, meaning those 3 thugs couldn't have gotten far. Sure enough, I found them taking shelter under a tight row of eaves. They were cursing up a storm, debating whether they should throw a burlap sack over my head and beat the living daylights out of me. But they were hesitating, totally paralyzed by the fear of my family's power. Right as they were second-guessing themselves, I burst out of the rain and planted myself right in front of them. The 3 of them jumped out of their skin, probably thinking I was back to extort them for cash. They threw their hands up, stumbling backward in fear. Hey, my 3 good friends, mind if I borrow something? The 3 of them exchanged nervous glances, their eyes completely guarded and full of suspicion. Oh, don't worry. I don't want your money. I want something else. The 3 of them stared at me, their faces twisted in total confusion. I didn't blink. I just stared right back into their eyes, flashing the most innocent, deceptively harmless smile I could possibly muster. A knife, I demanded. The 3 street thugs froze dead in their tracks, completely clueless as to why I wanted one. Come on, you 3 are street punks, I scoffed. Do not tell me you wander the dark streets without even packing a single blade. My little reverse psychology trick worked like an absolute charm. Greenie, completely unwilling to back down or look weak, whipped a flashy butterfly knife right out of his pocket and started twirling it arrogantly in front of my face. One glance was all I needed. I instantly knew this was definitely not the clean-cutting fruit knife mentioned in the old autopsy report. That thing was way too flashy. I will give you $100 for something simple, like a fruit knife, I offered. Lured by the sudden promise of easy cash, the other 2 thugs practically tripped over themselves trying to pull out their own weapons. One proudly showed off a bulky Swiss Army knife, while the other held a folding tactical blade that gleamed under the cold streetlights. Neither of them was the murder weapon I was desperately hunting for. Nice blades, but unfortunately, I only brought $100 with me. I sighed. Forget it. Ignoring their deeply suspicious glares and angry curses about being played, I turned on my heel and plunged right back into the freezing, icy rain. Those 3 goons did not have the weapon I needed. This lead was a complete and total dead end. A massive, agonizing surge of pure anxiety started burning a hole right through my chest. Honestly, the absolute easiest way to solve this nightmare would have been to reject Chloe, just like I did in my past life, and then secretly tail her to catch the real killer red-handed right at the bloody crime scene. But being blessed with a second chance at life, the very second I saw her standing there, perfectly safe and sound, I could not suppress the wild fluttering in my chest at all. I would much rather dig for a needle in a haystack than ever risk her life to even a single, microscopic shred of danger ever again. I dragged myself back into the nearby convenience store to buy a cheap umbrella. The sweet clerk behind the counter gently handed me a fresh, clean towel so I could dry off. I thanked her sincerely, wiped the freezing water from my face, and shoved my phone securely into a waterproof pouch. Then, matching the exact walking pace and route Chloe took in my past life, I popped the umbrella open and stepped right back into the raging storm once more. The very moment my boots hit the puddles, a brutal gust of fierce wind nearly snapped the umbrella clean in half. Trudging through the thick mud and shattered glass littering the pavement, I finally reached the exact starting point of the security camera's blind spot. This was it. This was the exact crime scene painfully etched into my memory from that forensics report in my past life. My waterproof watch glowed faintly in the pitch black, flashing 10:07, just as a sudden brutal gust of wind violently flipped my umbrella completely inside out. I just tossed the useless thing aside, letting the icy, unforgiving rain violently pelt down against my bare face. My phone buzzed heavily inside its waterproof case. Leaning back against the damp brick wall, I tapped the screen to pull up the live security feed of my apartment, bathed in the warm, comforting yellow light. Chloe was curled up tightly in the corner of the couch. She was nervously rubbing her feet together, her anxious eyes darting toward the front door, over and over again. Her face was a total mix of deep worry and quiet anticipation. "Just hang on a little bit longer," I whispered to myself. "Everything is going to be fine. Do not worry." The digital clock hit 10:29, when suddenly, a sharp, metallic clattering sound aggressively echoed from the dead end of the pitch-black alley. Every nerve on high alert, I instantly crept over, only to lock eyes with an unexpectedly familiar face. It was Jace, the absolute most notorious bad boy of Astro High School. Right now, he was just sitting under a shady, illegal awning, quietly using a simple fruit knife to peel an apple. "Well, look who it is. If it ain't Ethan," he smirked. "The wind and rain are absolutely brutal out here tonight. What are you doing wandering around without an umbrella, man?" "Just running some errands," I brushed him off. My umbrella got Jace just used the tip of his knife to poke at a sad, wrinkled apple sitting in a plastic bag. I already knew his whole tough guy school bully persona was nothing but a fragile defensive front. His family was dead broke, and his mom was battling severe kidney failure. "I brought some fruit for my old lady, but I ended up getting kicked out of the room," he muttered bitterly. I glanced down and noticed something strange on the edges of his muddy rain boots. There was non-slip tape stuck to them, the exact kind you always see in hospital corridors. And the knife blade? It heavily carried that harsh, unmistakable scent of disinfectant, unique to an intensive care unit. But my eyes were completely glued to the fruit knife in his hand. Every single detail of that cheap blade perfectly matched the murder weapon described in Chloe's case file. "What are you just standing out there in the rain for?" Jace called out. "Hurry up and get over here. My place is right next door. Let me loan you an umbrella." But right as I stepped safely under the awning, Jace's phone started ringing like absolutely crazy. A frantic nurse's voice blared through the speaker, urgently telling him that his mother's blood oxygen levels had completely crashed. All the color drained from Jace's face in a terrifying instant. With a heavy splash, the fruit knife slipped from his grip and dropped straight into a muddy puddle. Without even taking a single second to say goodbye, he spun around and sprinted like an absolute madman back into the violent, pouring rain. I slowly bent down and pulled the abandoned knife from the freezing, murky water. A deeply terrifying, bone-chilling sensation instantly washed over my entire body. I scrutinized the scene, my pulse pounding in my ears. The size, the style, the exact timing and location, everything matched perfectly. This was it, the very weapon that had brutally taken Chloe's life in my previous timeline. If Jace had tossed it here by mistake, the real killer would almost certainly show up within the next half hour to claim it. Taking a deep breath, I tossed the knife right back into the dirt. Leaning on years of grueling criminal investigation experience, I melted into the shadows, waiting in silent ambush as the freezing rain came down in buckets. At 10:35 p.m., a homeless man reeking of cheap booze stumbled out of the downpour and into the shelter of the awning. He kicked over a soda can, his muddy shoes stomping heavily onto the knife's handle and burying the blade deep into the muck. Clutching half a bottle of liquor, he swayed on his feet and stumbled away into the dark. At 10:47 p.m., a soaked delivery driver slammed on his brakes to escape the rain, tripped right over the buried knife, and ate dirt. He scrambled up, swearing like a sailor, and kicked the blade straight into a drainage ditch, where mud instantly swallowed it whole. The clock hit 10:55 p.m. With the knife completely buried in the sludge, It would take a miracle for anyone to just stumble across it now. We were down to the wire. Only a few minutes remained until the exact time Chloe had been murdered in my past life. Suddenly, a shadowy figure in a black raincoat and a mask slipped out from the dead end of the alley. Hunched against the wind, he made a beeline straight for the hidden knife and dropped into a crouch. Every muscle in my body coiled tight like a spring. Right as he reached for the muddy handle, his sleeve rode up, revealing a massive, unmistakable chemical burn on his wrist. I exploded out of the shadows. In the dreary, flickering streetlight, I finally saw the face hidden beneath the hood of that raincoat. I couldn't believe it. It was Astro High's notoriously gentle Mr. Nice Guy, our very own chemistry teacher, Arthur Miller. A massive wave of shock crashed over me. Just 3 months ago, this guy took an acid splash to protect some reckless kids messing around in the lab. He didn't even yell at them, he just gently comforted the student who caused the whole disaster. He was famous for being a totally henpecked husband, a guy so harmless that no one in the neighborhood had a single bad word to say about him. But if Arthur Miller was the killer, every single haunting question from my past life suddenly clicked into place. In my previous life, Chloe was attacked in this pitch-black alley, yet there was absolutely zero sign of a struggle or an attempt to run. It made total sense now. She completely trusted this kind, gentle teacher. If Arthur Miller had simply offered her shelter under his raincoat and invited her over to wait out the storm with his wife, stranded in a torrential downpour late at night, Chloe wouldn't have suspected a damn thing. A suffocating ache gripped my chest at the thought, but I had to keep my cool and avoid doing anything stupid. Right now, in this timeline, Arthur Miller hadn't killed anyone yet. I had to use every trick in my detective playbook to figure out why he was really lurking out here. Mr. Miller's head snapped up. When he saw me drenched to the bone, his face immediately twisted into a mask of pure shock and concern. "Ethan, how did you get so drenched?" he asked. "I went out to handle some business and got caught in the storm," I replied. "Mr. Miller, what are you doing out in such heavy rain?" I shot back. I stared closely at his expression, keenly catching a flicker of panic in his eyes. "It's nothing. I just came out to buy a pack of cigarettes." He was lying through his teeth. Arthur Miller was a notorious non-smoker, known by everyone as the ultimate straight-laced family man. "My raincoat is pretty huge," he offered. "Come on, get under here and dry off. I'll walk you to my place, and you can borrow the coat to get home." He flashed me that same warm, friendly smile. I played dumb, nodding blankly as I ducked under his massive raincoat. Cramped together in the dark, I caught him instinctively glancing at a nearby adult toy vending machine before he quickly snapped his eyes forward and wrapped an arm around my shoulder. Walking beside him, I felt like a mindless zombie trapped in a nightmare. Once we reached his front door, Miller whipped out his phone, fired off a quick text, and shoved it back in his pocket. "Ah, man, I forgot my keys. Let's just wait a sec." Haha. Total garbage. I had literally just felt his keys jingling against his waist a second ago. Lie number 2 for the night. My internal alarms were screaming. A few moments later, the front door finally clicked open. Standing there was Miller's wife, Sarah, another chemistry teacher at our school, dressed in nothing but a slinky silk nightgown. The belt was hanging loose, and her cheeks were flushed a deep, telltale red. Warm light poured out from the hallway, revealing a knocked-over wine bottle on the coffee table, a flickering scented candle, and rose petals scattered everywhere. The air in the room was heavy with the lingering, undeniable scent of romance. In that split second, the fog in my brain completely vanished. Every single clue slammed together, painting a crystal-clear, horrifying picture of the truth. Picture this. Mr. Miller was totally gearing up for a steamy, romantic night with his wife, only to realize they were completely out of protection. Panic mode activated, he actually braved the freezing rain just to go buy some. But thanks to his incurable nice guy syndrome, he took a detour on the way to clear out some random junk clogging up a flooded storm drain. And that is exactly how he ended up grabbing that terrifying fruit knife by mistake. Bumping into me completely ruined his vibe. He was suddenly way too embarrassed to buy his bedroom supplies, but he also couldn't bring himself to leave me stranded in the dark. So, with his romantic plans totally crushed, he dragged me back to his place instead. Oh, and that awkward stunt just now, where he pretended to forget his keys while frantically texting? Yeah, that was just a desperate stalling tactic to give his poor wife enough time to rip off her spicy lingerie and put on some actual clothes. Suddenly, every single piece of his bizarre behavior made total sense. The pieces finally clicked. But wait, how on earth did you get so completely drenched? Ah, I am so incredibly sorry. Quick, grab this towel and dry off before you freeze. Thank you so much, Mrs. Miller. I snatched the towel and roughly rubbed my hair dry, but the creeping suspicion in my chest was rapidly spiraling into a total, maddening confusion. I mean, think about it. If he was still that exact same perfectly nice guy, and if his wife was waiting back home with desperate anticipation for some intimacy, I mean, just look at him. Would a guy like this actually harbor some twisted obsession for a random student on the street, take her life, and just toss away the evidence? Saran's eyes locked onto the grime-covered blade, still tightly clenched in Arthur Miller's fist. Raising a curious eyebrow, she just had to ask, "Where exactly did you scavenge that knife? And why on earth is it so filthy?" I picked it up right by the storm drain. It was blocking a whole bunch of trash. I bumped into Ethan right after, and totally forgot to toss it out. Arthur Miller casually explained, getting ready to chuck the blade straight into the trash can. But right then, a cold chill hit me. Something was horribly wrong. "Wait a second, Mr. Miller," I snapped out. "Let me get a good look at that knife." Looking totally confused, Arthur flipped the weapon around, carefully pointing the sharp blade inward and holding the handle out for me to take. That quick, instinctive move just to keep me safe? It proved, yet again, that the guy was a total softy deep down, despite everything. I grabbed the little fruit knife, bringing it up to my eyes for a closer look, and my stomach completely dropped. The alley light had been way too dim earlier for me to see it, but the edge of this blade was actually chipped. Jace obviously did this by hacking into something rock solid. The autopsy report said absolutely nothing about a rolled edge. A chipped blade like this would leave a completely different kind of cut on a victim. The horrifying truth hit me like a freight train. This wasn't the real murder weapon at all. I had been chasing down the completely wrong target this entire time. Panic setting in, I jerked my wrist up to check my watch. It was already 11:30 at night. The actual killer might just be making their move right now. My chest tightened with overwhelming anxiety as I desperately shoved the towel back into Sarah's hands and braced for the worst. "I'm sorry, Mr. Miller, but it's getting way too late. I have to hurry home. I'll just borrow your raincoat for now." I shoved the hilt of the knife right back into Arthur Miller's hand, threw on the heavy raincoat, and lunged straight back out into the raging storm. I sprinted all the way back to the crime scene, desperately scouring the surrounding area, looping back and forth for what felt like hours. Every now and then, a random passerby would hurry past, but not a single one of them looked like a cold-blooded killer who would stop midway just to commit a murder. By 11:30 at night, the streets were completely dead. I pulled out my phone, frantically checking the live security feed. Chloe was curled up tightly on the sofa, nodding off with heavy eyes, her head bobbing as she fought a losing battle against exhaustion. Yet, she was still forcing herself to stay awake, desperately fighting off the sleep. She kept glancing toward the front door, just waiting for me to finally come home. I clenched my fist tight, violently ripping off the raincoat, and continued to pace relentlessly around the pitch-black crime scene until the clock struck midnight. Yet I still hadn't spotted a single suspicious shadow. My chest tightened, completely overwhelmed by a suffocating sense of helplessness and an ice-cold dread. Had I really missed my one chance? The clock had ticked past midnight, and I still hadn't seen a single suspicious figure out there. That same deep, crushing sense of helplessness and chilling dread washed over me all over again. Had I actually missed it? Damn it. If I can't find the real killer tonight, how the hell am I ever going to clear Chloe's name from my past life? I tilted my head back, letting the freezing, pouring rain violently pelt my face, my eyes burning with a determination fiercer than ever before. Suddenly, my phone buzzed in my hand. I snapped the security feed open in a heartbeat. On the screen, even though Chloe looked incredibly dazed from sheer exhaustion, she still choked down her deep fear of being left all alone, dragging herself over to the door and pacing back and forth with a face full of sheer panic. "Hey! Hey! Hey!" My sudden voice echoing from the speaker startled her. She immediately whipped her head toward the security camera, following the sound. "It's just me. It's Ethan. I got held up by something, but I swear I'll be back very soon. If you're tired, just go ahead and get some sleep first, okay?" "I'm just so glad you're okay," she murmured softly. "I'm not tired yet. I'll wait right here for you to come back. She squeezed out this incredibly gentle, brave little smile toward the camera lens. I promise, I'll be right back, I whispered. After hearing that, she dragged her utterly exhausted body back to the couch and curled tightly back up under the heavy blanket, her face finally looking a whole lot more relieved. Staring blindly out at the completely empty streets, I just stood there in the pouring rain, letting the freezing water wash entirely over me. This had been a deeply ingrained habit of mine for years. The freezing cold water always forced my brain to switch into high gear in a split second. I immediately began to frantically replay every single little detail I had encountered tonight. The convenience store clerk, Leo, those three thugs. I shoved every single one of them onto my suspect list. But when Leo got jumped by those goons, they dumped his backpack out completely. The guy didn't have a single penny on him, let alone a bloody murder weapon. Cross out those three thugs, too. Yeah, they had a solid motive, but the type of blades they were packing, not even a close match to the real thing. Scratch the homeless guy and the delivery driver. The knife they touched definitely wasn't the actual murder weapon either. So, after crossing off every single person who couldn't have done it, my mind instantly rewound, locking onto the one guy I swore was completely innocent, Jace. Jace had rushed to the hospital because his mom was in critical condition, dropping his knife at the scene. But wait, what if her condition stabilized faster than expected? A mere half hour would be more than enough time for him to make a quick round trip to the hospital. And what if, on his way back, realizing he lost his blade, he swung by a nearby shop to grab a new one, a simple fruit knife? The police files literally stated that between 10 p.m. and 11 p.m. that night, some mystery person bought a fruit knife in the pouring rain. Plus, the time he got back perfectly missed the exact window when Mr. Miller and I checked his house. Stitching this whole timeline together, Jace's suspicion level just skyrocketed off the charts. Proving this crazy theory would actually be dead simple. Just go knock on Jace's front door right this second. If he was already home and had actually bought a brand new knife, then his guilt would be absolutely locked in. Following my gut memory, I pulled up near his place, and my heart sank like a stone. The lights inside his house, they were actually on. Taking a massive, shaky breath, I hammered on the door. It swung open, revealing a shirtless Jace with a damp towel slung over his head. Ethan, what the hell, man? It's crazy late and you're still not home? Where'd you even get that raincoat? I stepped inside, my eyes instantly locking onto a shiny, brand new fruit knife resting right on his table. The mystery guy from the police files who bought a blade in the midnight rain. It really was him. Mr. Miller lent it to me. Did you just get back? Yeah, man. There was a bit of a scare with my mom earlier. I was in such a frantic rush I totally forgot to toss you an umbrella. What are you even doing out this late, instead of going home? Nothing. Just felt like taking a walk in the rain. Hey, you bolted so fast earlier you ended up dropping your knife on the ground. Why'd you go and buy a brand new one? Holy crap, dude, I was wondering why I couldn't find it, no matter how hard I dug through my pockets. Where did it drop? Mr. Miller actually picked it up and tossed it in the trash. Ah, screw it then. Honestly, that old knife was getting super chipped from whittling a wooden bucket anyway, so I just grabbed a fresh one on my way back. He let out a careless laugh, but my heart just grew incredibly heavy. The exact time he got home? It perfectly matched the time of the crime, and he had literally just bought the exact same model as the murder weapon. There was zero way I could rule him out as a suspect now. Carefully weighing every single word, I decided to test Jace head on. Hey, we're considered friends, right? What do you mean considered? We're total brothers, man. Are you dealing with some heavy stuff? Just give it to me straight. Seeing that fiercely loyal, goofy look on his face, I stared him dead in the eyes. Listen to me. I never want to see you end up rotting behind bars for doing something insanely stupid. You need to think about the real consequences of your actions. Your mom needs you there to take care of her. Don't do anything that crosses the line and breaks the law. Jace instantly froze. But the idiot totally misunderstood what I meant. He thought I had somehow figured out his dumb little plan to hustle fake cigarettes at school. So not only was he not mad, he was actually deeply touched that I braved the pouring rain just to give him a reality check. Don't sweat it, bro. Others might not know how I operate, but you do, right? I won't do it. Seeing that my point had landed, I stood up, ready to bounce. Little did I know that completely accidental warning just made him drop the whole fake cigarette hustle for good. As I turned my back and stepped out into the freezing rain, He melodramatically pounded his fist against his chest behind me, silently swearing to himself, totally convinced that I was his ultimate brother for life. I said my goodbyes to Jace, a total mess of mixed emotions, gripping Mr. Miller's raincoat as I quietly sneaked back to his front door to drop it off. Faintly, through the walls, came these wild noises that would make anyone's face flush, red, and heart race. Yeah, I definitely wasn't going to make a peep and ruin their fun. Trudging all the way home through that relentless downpour, my heavy mood actually started to lighten up just a bit. Look, if Jace really was the killer, then at this exact moment, he was still at a stage where he could be guided away from giving in to those dark, twisted impulses. Out of every single person I crossed paths with tonight, absolutely no one carried a heavier cloud of suspicion than him. By the time I finally dragged myself back home, it was well past midnight. The second the front door clicked open, Chloe, who had been half asleep, buried under a blanket, snapped her eyes wide open. Seeing I was back, she flashed the brightest smile and practically trotted over to me. But the very second she got close, she realized I was completely soaked to the bone, looking like a total drowned rat. You just ran out to grab a late-night snack. How on earth did you end up completely drenched like this? The storm outside was absolute hell. My umbrella snapped like a twig in the wind, and our late-night snacks got totally blown away. Well, there goes our food, I sighed. You better hurry up and take a hot shower. If you don't, you're definitely going to catch a nasty cold. Seeing that pure concern written all over her face, I couldn't help but smile. Look, the bed in the guest room is literally just a hardwood board right now. I haven't set up a single thing in there. So, do you want to tough it out on the couch tonight, or squeeze into bed with me? I teased. Relax, I'll take the sofa. I'm just messing with you. You take the actual bed, and I'll crash on the couch. Just give me a second to shower first. Not wanting to drip rainwater all over the freshly mopped floor, I headed straight for the living room and started peeling off my soaking wet clothes. Hearing the heavy rustle of wet fabric, Chloe instinctively glanced up. The sight of my lean, tight like twader, twetty-find of lighter. The sight of my lean tightly hot, and her throat felt completely dry, leaving her absolutely speechless. I'm gonna go wash up, I said casually. I'll call you in to get some sleep the second I'm done. Completely oblivious to her inner panic, I grabbed my soaked gear and walked into the bathroom. Chloe just nodded like a broken robot, only snapping out of it when the sound of the shower finally echoed through the apartment. She practically melted into the sofa like she didn't have a single bone left in her body, pressing the back of her hand hard against her burning cheeks. A few minutes later, I walked back out with just a towel wrapped around my waist, fully intending to tell her the bedroom was all hers for the night. Instead, I found her clutching a throw blanket like a tiny kitten. She was curled up deep into the sofa cushions, fast asleep and letting out these soft, peaceful little breaths. I walked over quietly, kneeling down just to take in the sight of her sleeping face. Watching the gentle rise and fall of her chest, this whole moment felt entirely unreal, like I was trapped in some crazy, beautiful dream. I reached out to gently brush a stray hair from her face, but a single drop of water from my wet arm suddenly fell, landing right on her slightly parted lips. She unconsciously licked her lips, startling me so much I practically jerked my hand back. Right then, a massive crash of thunder exploded outside the window, making Chloe suddenly roll over, kicking off half of her blanket. I instinctively reached out to grab it, but my fingers brushed against her warm ankle instead. Instantly, I could feel her steady breathing turn shallow and erratic. Her eyelashes were trembling like crazy, and I could practically feel her body temperature skyrocketing. She was wide awake, but completely refusing to open her eyes. Deciding not to call her bluff, I just scooped her right up, blanket and all, and walked steadily toward the bedroom. With every step I took, the girl in my arms grew more and more tense, stiff as a board. I laid her down as gently as possible on the mattress, pulled away that thin throw blanket, and tucked her in tightly with my heavy comforter. Then, I leaned in dangerously close to her ear. She instinctively shrank back from my warm breath. Smiling to myself, I just turned around and walked right out the door. The very second the bedroom door clicked shut, Chloe's eyes snapped wide open in the pitch-black room. Honestly, during those few short steps from the living room to the bed, her brain had Her nerves were stretched to the absolute breaking point, completely dreading the worst, yet all she got instead was a sweet, gentle goodnight. Gripping the edge of the comforter with her small hands, she pulled the thick fabric right up to her nose. The faint, comforting scent of my body wash still lingered there. For the very first time in her life, she didn't curl up into a defensive little ball. Her entire body just melted, completely and totally relaxed. Wrapping herself tightly in the warmth of the blankets, she fell fast asleep. By the time morning rolled around, the torrential rain that had battered the windows all night finally began to let up. Having finally gotten a full, peaceful night of sleep, Chloe was up bright and early. She changed back into her clothes that had been drying overnight. Dead set on fulfilling her promise to do chores as payback for crashing at my place, she diligently scrubbed my bedroom until it was absolutely spotless. But the second she tiptoed out into the living room, she froze dead in her tracks. See, last night I was just way too exhausted to function. I had wrapped a flimsy bath towel around my waist and crashed hard on the sofa under a blanket. Right now, my back was turned squarely toward her, but at some point during the night, that towel, which was supposed to keep me decent, had completely slipped off and landed on the floor. Chloe's face instantly exploded into a bright, burning crimson red. Desperate to distract herself, she raided the fridge and skillfully started whipping up some breakfast sandwiches and hot milk. But no matter how hard she tried, that blush-inducing, completely exposed scene from just a second ago kept uncontrollably flashing in her mind. Just as Chloe set the plates on the table, I finally groaned and woke up. Still half asleep, my hand instinctively shot out toward the nightstand to grab my sidearm only to hit the cold, hard glass of the coffee table instead. My eyes snapped open. I abruptly propped myself up with my left hand and shot up into a sitting position. Wait, the agonizing old shoulder injury from hunting down a vicious criminal in my memories? It didn't throb with even a single ounce of pain. Massaging my pounding temples, I frowned deeply and tossed the towel aside. The skin I was staring at felt completely alien, totally disconnected from the brutal memories I carried. The jagged scars from countless lethal knife fights had vanished without a single trace. In their place was a smooth, completely unblemished, youthful body that looked brand new. My eyes snapped open. The truth hit me like a freight train. I really had gone back in time, 10 whole years into the past. I whipped my head toward the wide-open bedroom door, my heart slamming against my ribs in absolute panic. It wasn't until I caught sight of her bustling around the kitchen that my knees finally gave out, and I collapsed heavily back onto the sofa. I let out a massive, shaky breath. Thank God. It wasn't just some cruel dream. She actually survived that horrific, rain-soaked night. In my past life as a detective, I was completely crushed by endless guilt and burnout. I never got to live a single, normal day of my youth. But now, she's still breathing, and I've got my youth back. This time around, I swear I'm going to live life to the absolute fullest. Ethan! Time to get up and eat. I already made breakfast. I really hope you like it. Chloe peeked her head out from the dining room, her voice incredibly soft and sweet. I sat up, taking in the mouth-watering aroma. The comforting smell of toasted wheat and warm milk completely filled the air. Be right there. I strolled over to the dining table, where Chloe was sitting as quiet as a mouse, waiting for me. Hey, you don't have to wait for me next time. Just go ahead and dig in. It's totally fine, she replied. I have to wait for you to finish anyway, so we can wash the dishes together. Try it, and tell me what you think. If it's not good, I promise I'll fix it next time. Are you kidding? With these cooking skills, you could totally open a diner right behind our school. When that happens, I'll work the cash register, and you can be the star chef. I used to be super independent when I lived by myself, but having you around to spoil me, I'm terrified I'll turn into a total lazy slob. Ha-ha. Chloe cupped her cheeks with both hands, her smile lighting up the entire room. I took a massive bite of the sandwich. The perfectly warm fried egg and gooey cheese literally melted in my mouth. It honestly tasted out of this world. I reached for a tissue and gently wiped a tiny smudge of grease right off the tip of her nose. The tips of Chloe's ears instantly flushed bright pink. She shyly ducked her head, anxiously stirring the milk in her cup. Once we killed off breakfast, I was just reaching to clear the plates when my fingers accidentally brushed against hers. Her skin was incredibly soft, but freezing cold. Despite that, Chloe stubbornly took over all the chores, scrubbing the kitchen at lightning speed until it literally sparkled. The second she stepped out of the kitchen, her eyes darted around, desperately looking for something else to clean. I grabbed her tiny hand and firmly planted her right on the sofa. You look completely exhausted. So, you are officially banned from doing any chores for the next few days. I'm the boss of this house, which means you follow my orders and get some actual rest. Otherwise, I might just have to kick you out on the street. Chloe gasped, totally startled by my threat, and frantically nodded her head in obedience. Now, come out shopping with me. I'm buying you some new clothes. I should just go home and grab my old things, she stammered. Just mentioning her home made her face tighten with pure dread. No way. We're getting brand new ones. And since you're broke right now, I'm footing the bill. With principal and interest, you're going to be stuck working as my personal housekeeper for a very long time to pay off this debt. If you can't pay it back, you're never leaving. Chloe wasn't dumb. She could easily hear the desperate plea for her to stay hidden behind my teasing. A rush of warmth flooded her chest. She finally relaxed into a gentle smile and whispered, "Where do you usually buy your clothes?" "At that thrift shop around the corner, right in the back alley near our school. You can score a whole outfit for $50. But don't worry, I make sure to sanitize everything super carefully. I boil them 3 times in soapy water and bake them in the sun until they're totally clean." Her quiet voice trembled with panic, terrified I was going to judge her for being poor. I actually just thought of the perfect place. The clothes there are top tier. I grabbed her hand, yanking her forward so fast she stumbled, her forehead gently smacking right into my shoulder blade. She didn't pull away at all. She just let me drag her along until we stopped dead in front of a flashy glass storefront on the corner. The heavy wooden door was cracked open, and the sweet chime of the doorbell mixed flawlessly with some lazy jazz playing from an old record player. Chloe stared wide-eyed at the luxurious fabrics in the window display, her fingers nervously gripping my sleeve. "Ethan, this place looks way too expensive. The owner is an old buddy of my mom's. She hooks students up with crazy discounts. It's dirt cheap, trust me. Come on, let's head in." I pushed the door wide open. The shop smelled amazing, like warm, freshly pressed cotton. Auntie Sharon glanced up from behind the counter, her eyes zeroing in instantly on our locked hands. A knowing smirk crinkled the corners of her eyes. "Oh my, what a gorgeous girl. Ethan, did you bring your little girlfriend here to spoil her with some new clothes?" The tips of Chloe's ears practically caught fire, they turned so red. Feeling her freeze up, I gently let go of her hand. "Auntie Sharon, hook her up with a few killer outfits for the season. She's going to need some underwear too. Make sure it's the high-end, pure cotton stuff." Auntie Sharon gave a wicked little smile and dragged Chloe behind the dressing room curtain which, funnily enough, only covered everything from the neck down. Chloe looked like a deer in headlights, feeling completely exposed under my gaze as she shyly shrank back into the clothing racks. I stepped back and took a seat by the window, absent-mindedly flipping through a catalog. Even so, Auntie Sharon's playful voice carried right through the fitting room curtain. "Don't be shy about that lace one, sweetie. Take it from me. A woman has to please herself first. Lingerie is for you, so just pick whatever makes you feel good. Besides, this set will definitely drive that rascal, Ethan, absolutely crazy. You'll feel gorgeous, and he'll love seeing you in it. Isn't that a win-win?" Chloe desperately wanted to explain that we weren't actually together, but the words caught in her throat, leaving her totally speechless. In the end, she just gave a timid little nod, her face burning bright red. Once they finished picking out the lingerie, Auntie Sharon grabbed a few more outfits and ducked right back behind the curtain. Listening to the soft rustling of fabric, a thin layer of sweat broke out on the back of my neck. My mind was racing, and I couldn't stop imagining what she would look like in those clothes. Swoosh! The curtain flew open. Does it look weird? Chloe clutched her skirt and gave a little half-twirl. The soft morning light poured over her, illuminating a semi-translucent, honey-colored cotton dress. The hem billowed out in a graceful, breathtaking curve. My Adam's apple bobbed hard. I suddenly stood up and reached out to fix her collar. You missed the second button. The second my fingertips accidentally brushed her warm, smooth skin, I jerked my hand back like I'd been shocked. Scrambling to hide how flustered I was, I grabbed a straw sun hat and popped it right onto her head. "Looks like you're both pretty happy with it. Now, try this set next," Auntie Sharon teased as the curtain flew open once more. This time, The semi-translucent linen fabric perfectly outlined the young girl's delicate curves in the glowing morning light. I couldn't tear my eyes away for even a single second. Auntie Sharon seriously had a killer eye for fashion, because the next few outfits fit Chloe like a glove. Seeing the older woman getting totally addicted to playing dress-up, I had to speak up and pump the brakes. All right, Auntie Sharon, take it easy on the outfits. My card is about to be maxed out. Oh, what are you so afraid of? Just go get reimbursed by your mom later. Trust me, she'll be absolutely thrilled to spend money on her future daughter-in-law. Honestly, I thought you two had already sealed the deal. I could only smile awkwardly, begging her over and over to cut us some slack. Auntie Sharon kept teasing us relentlessly, but she still slipped us a super-friendly 90% discount. While ringing us up, she packed the lingerie in a separate bag, then leaned in to whisper right in my ear. Your little girlfriend's figure gets Auntie Sharon's official stamp of approval. I let out an awkward dry cough, feeling my ears burn bright red as I quickly handed over my credit card. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught Chloe standing on her tiptoes, gazing at a delicate lace nightgown displayed by the window. Bathed in the soft morning glow, she looked incredibly young, vibrant, and stunning. But in that daze, a brutal flash of memory hit me. The gruesome image of her lifeless, broken body, lying in the freezing rain from my past life, violently ripped through my mind once again. My fists clenched so hard my knuckles turned white, and I swore a fierce, silent oath right then and there in my heart. As long as I have breath in my lungs in this second life, I will absolutely protect this beautiful girl standing in front of me with everything I have. With her wardrobe finally sorted, all we had left to buy was the bedding. I took the lead, loaded down with shopping bags, while Chloe trailed a few steps behind, secretly stealing glances at me from the corner of her eye. A piece of mint green lace peeked out of the shopping bag, fluttering softly in the breeze. The home furnishings department is up on the 4th floor, I said. Just pick out whatever catches your eye in a bit. After all, you're the one who's going to be sleeping on it. Walking together like that, we looked exactly like a young couple out shopping. She carried a sweet, nervous energy as we finally stepped into the bedding store. The warm, golden lighting made the entire room feel incredibly cozy and soft. I pushed the shopping cart right by her side, quietly watching as she leaned over to look at the displays. It totally gave me the illusion that we were a pair of newlyweds setting up our forever home. Would this be way too expensive? What's expensive about it? If you like it, just try it out first. I pulled a premium silk comforter off the top shelf and playfully shoved it right into her arms. She just smiled softly, staying quiet while I crouched down to compare the different blanket fillings. While my back was turned, she quietly put that 4-figure silk comforter right back on the shelf. Instead, she picked up a super cheap, light green washed cotton one. This one actually feels pretty good, she lied. Good, my foot. The texture felt incredibly cheap and rough. I instantly realized she'd been completely spooked by the price tag. I stood up, reached over, and lightly tapped her on the forehead. Listen, good bedding drastically improves your sleep quality. Besides, even if you don't sleep in the guest room in the future, we can just wash it and keep it for actual guests. It's totally fine to splurge on the expensive one. My casual use of the word we and the phrase don't sleep in the guest room instantly sent her mind spiraling into a completely different, wildly romantic implication. She stood there, totally dazed. Hey, come over here and test out the support on this mattress, I called out. Before she could even process what was happening, I gently pulled her down straight onto the fluffy silk comforter, sliding a memory foam pillow right behind her head. Through the thin fabric of her clothes, I could feel the intoxicating heat of her skin as my palm gently supported the small of her back. Chloe melted into the plush new bedding, a soft blush creeping across her cheeks. For the first time in forever, the air around her felt warm, thick with a honey-sweet sense of safety. Just moments before, right after we had finished shopping, she stared down at that pale silver duvet in the cart, whispering a timid, fragile thank you. Thank you, Ethan. Her words made me stop dead in my tracks, and she clumsily bumped right into my back. Drop the word thanks from your vocabulary, I told her, my voice low but firm. Actions speak way louder than words. Before you even think about paying me back, no matter what goes down, you absolutely cannot put yourself in danger. Still a bit dazed by my intensity, she just gave an obedient little nod. Come on, I said softly. Let's head home. After cashing out and leaving my address for the delivery guys, I grabbed her bags of clothes and walked her back. Passing the rundown bakery on the corner, the rich, sweet scent of fermented rice wine and osmanthus hit the air. I bought a piping hot slice of rice cake, blew on it to cool it down, and held it right up to her lips. She took a small bite, leaving a sticky dab of sweet syrup right at the corner of her mouth. I reached out, gently wiping it away with my thumb. "Is it good?" I asked. "Oh yeah, it's so sweet and warm," she murmured. "Next time, I'll take you down to the main food street," I promised. "They've got way better stuff over there." Hearing that, she stared longingly at my back. What I didn't realize was that, deep in her heart, she had been holding on to a promise we made in the park when we were just kids. By the time we grabbed the rest of her toiletries and finally made it home, the delivery guys had already dropped off the bedding. I dropped to my knees on the guest room floor, fighting to stuff the comforter into the new duvet cover. Chloe just stood to the side, tightly hugging her new pillow. "Let me do it," she offered. "Nah, I got it," I shot back with a grin. "I'm afraid you'll accidentally sew yourself into the blanket." I shook out the crisp new bedsheet, spinning around to playfully drape it right over her head like a ghost. "Listen up," I said. "This whole bed, and this entire room, they belong to you. At least until you get sick of being here." Those simple, casual words struck a heavy chord deep inside her heart. She suddenly turned her back to me. The air instantly felt heavy, thick with a bittersweet tension. I watched her shoulders tremble unnaturally, and it hit me she was actually crying. This was probably the very first time in her life she truly felt what it was like to have a home. To break the heavy ice, I purposely started messing with her. "Whoa, don't get all emotional on me just yet," I teased. "I'm still charging you rent, you know. You can crash here, but you better start brainstorming how to pay off your massive debt." Hearing my joke, Chloe wiped her eyes and turned back around. Her eyes were rimmed red with tears, but the most insanely bright, radiant smile was blossoming across her face. The second I finished helping Chloe get totally settled in, I collapsed onto the living room sofa, finally trying to catch my breath. But out of nowhere, a sharp, jarring ring from the doorbell shattered the quiet. Startled, Chloe instinctively flinched backwards. Having lived through a total bloodbath in my past life, my nerves were already frayed to the absolute breaking point. I didn't dare drop my guard for even a fraction of a second. Gripped by the terrifying thought that the shadow killer might be standing right outside my door, I shot up like a coiled spring, yanking Chloe firmly behind my back. "Stay right here," I whispered sharply. "I'll go check." Shocked by my intense, borderline crazy protective instinct, Chloe froze, but a soft ripple of sweet warmth flickered in her eyes. Bracing myself for a monster, I crept up and pressed my eye to the peephole, only to find that the guy standing outside was actually Jace, my current prime suspect. Wait. On this exact day in my previous life, Jace had never come to my place. The timeline, it's already changing. This random, unannounced visit sent my paranoia into overdrive. I forced my racing heart to calm down, unlocked the deadbolt, and swung the door open. "Jace? The hell are you doing here?" I asked. "What? I can't check up on my boy for no reason?" He laughed. "Man, the storm was insane last night, and you got totally soaked. I was low-key worried you were going to catch a brutal cold, so I literally begged my mom to teach me how to brew this anti-cold soup and brought it straight over." Staring at the metal thermos in his hands, it all suddenly clicked in my head. My crazy stunt braving the pouring rain just to warn him last night must have deeply moved him. I had officially triggered a massive butterfly effect, staring blankly at the guy standing on my porch, whose eyes were literally shining with pure loyalty and brotherly respect. I was totally speechless. "Actually, yeah, my head does feel a bit heavy," I muttered. "Then hurry up and slam 2 bowls of this while it's hot." Just as Jace eagerly stepped inside, he suddenly spotted Chloe, who was still hiding behind me. He froze like a deer in headlights, his eyes rapidly darting back and forth between the two of us. "Whoa, Chloe? You two know each other?" "Oh, okay, I get it," he smirked. "Hello, sister-in-law. Damn, looks like I picked the worst possible time to crash today. Here, drink this brown sugar, ginger, and jujube soup while it's still piping hot. It's super nourishing for the sister-in-law to drink too. Anyway, I gotta run to the hospital to take care of my mom, so I won't stay here and play third wheel." With that, Jace spun around and bolted down the hall like a bat out of hell. Watching his bright, straightforward figure disappear, a chaotic storm of emotions tore through my chest. Honestly, it was damn near impossible to believe that someone so fiercely loyal to his friends could actually be a cold-blooded killer. I desperately prayed to catch another suspect, just so I could completely clear his name in my head. Chloe stared blankly down the street where Jay had vanished. "Everyone swears he's this terrifying bully," she murmured, "but he doesn't seem like a monster at all. Looks really can be deceiving. He's a guy with a dark history. Trust me, nothing is as simple as it looks on the surface." I twisted the cap off the thermos, letting the rich, spicy sweet scent of ginger and dates fill the room. I poured out 2 steaming bowls and handed her one. "Drink up while it's hot. You got completely soaked last night, too. You've been looking so pale lately. Drink this to get your strength back." As the sweet broth slid down her throat, a sudden wave of warmth flooded her freezing body. "I grew up hearing awful rumors about him," she whispered. "I never imagined he was actually a decent guy. The crushing weight of reality just changes people. He really didn't have to end up so broken." Hearing about the weight of reality, Chloe's face instantly shadowed over. Those simple words clearly struck a raw nerve, dragging up her own traumatic past. As for Chloe's messed up family, I only knew the bare minimum. Back in my past life, when I investigated her case, I tracked down both her parents and got absolutely nothing. They had divorced ages ago to start shiny new families. She was stuck living with her mom. This made one thing brutally clear regarding that nightmare of a night in my previous life. Chloe had been driven into absolute desperation just to find shelter. It definitely stemmed from her toxic home life. Nosy neighbors told me she bolted into the freezing rain after a violent blowout with her stepdad. Word was she had even stabbed him. But when I confronted them, they lied through their teeth. They swore her stepdad had supposedly slipped on a wet floor and miraculously fallen onto her mother's knife while she was peeling an apple. Right. They also spun a ridiculous tale, claiming the stepdad had snooped through Chloe's phone, found photos of boys, and just lightly scolded her, sparking a massive fight. Conveniently, they rushed to the hospital the second Chloe ran out. Security cameras unfortunately backed up their hospital arrival, giving them an ironclad alibi and ruling them out as suspects. But when the cops told them Chloe was dead, the stepdad didn't even flinch. The mother collapsed on the spot and lost her damn mind. But the detail that completely shattered my heart? The investigation proved Chloe went to her deadbeat dad's place right after fleeing her mom's, but she was kicked back out to the streets minutes later. The grainy footage showed her head hanging in pure defeat, looking far more broken than when she arrived, on that merciless, stormy night. She had the door slammed in her face by her only 2 families in the world. Only then did she finally drag herself to my doorstep. I don't even dare to imagine, when her shivering hand knocked on my door, just how soul-crushing her despair must have been. Every time it crosses my mind, the sickening guilt hits me like a tidal wave. Thank God the universe gave me a second chance. This time around, I swear on my life, I am never letting go of her hand again. I walked over to the couch with a fresh cup of hot milk. Chloe was curled up in the corner, totally lost in a book. The warm lamplight traced her fragile silhouette. I caught her unconsciously rubbing her left wrist, right over that faint, pale pink crescent scar. "Here, taste it." I stirred in some honey. I gently pressed the warm glass into her hands. Her lips parted to say thanks, but she remembered our golden rule and swallowed the words back down. Through the swirling steam of the sweet milk, I realized she was deep into that weird book I'd randomly left on the shelf. "Wait, are you trying to become a fortune teller?" I teased. "Yeah, and once I figure it out, I'm totally doing a reading for you." She shot me a playful smile. Right as we were laughing, the horrific, piercing screech of slamming brakes exploded from outside the window. Chloe's spine snapped rigid, almost dropping her glass. I instantly grabbed her shaking hand, glancing out to make sure nothing had crashed into us. I sat back down beside her, giving her freezing hand a gentle squeeze. "Hey, don't panic. You still owe me a massive debt, remember? Until you pay me back every single penny, absolutely no one is taking you away from me. I don't care who they are." Hearing my intense words, Chloe's racing heart pounded even more wildly. "Well, once I master this book, I'll check if our fortunes are compatible. You'd better. I'm honestly terrified my luck might clash with yours since I'm your bossy creditor." At that, Chloe's delicate face flushed bright red. What I didn't know was that she had secretly calculated our compatibility already, and we were shockingly a 100% perfect match. So, what are your top college picks? She deflected nervously. Even though I have a few ideas, I haven't fully decided yet. What about you? For me, the choice is simple. Wherever you go, I go. You owe me big time, after all. If I don't stick to you like glue and you run off, I lose everything. Chloe stirred her drink in gentle circles, her gaze locked onto my smiling eyes. A bittersweet warmth rippled through her heart. She murmured, I want to apply to King's University, or maybe the psychology program at Kyoto Medical University. Those two schools are no joke. What made you want to major in psychology? The tragic memory of her mother suddenly losing her mind flashed through my head. Could her mom have been suffering from a mental illness all along? Chloe opened her mouth to speak, but couldn't find the words. I smiled. It's a great major. It can really toughen up your mental resilience, too. She nodded. I will work as hard as I can. Then I will be your personal tutor. She blinked at me in total shock. My current grades were dead average, while she was sitting right at the top of the class. What? I teased. Do you look down on me? No, she stammered. Oh, you are totally lying. Whenever you lie, you can't even look me in the eye, and you always stutter. Little did I know, hearing those words proved to her that I had been secretly paying close attention to her all along. The sweetness bubbling in her chest instantly beat the sugary milk. To prove myself, I whipped out a massive stack of college prep mock exams. I breezed through several pages in a flash, nailing every single question with lightning speed. The truth is, in my past life, I studied like a man possessed just to get into the police academy and hunt down the real killer. These test questions were permanently burned into my soul. Seeing my hidden genius in action, a bright gleam of admiration flashed in Chloe's eyes. Then, don't I owe you even more for tutoring fees? She asked softly. What if I can't afford to pay you back? Then you better hurry up and sign a servitude contract with me. I pulled out a piece of paper and a pen, sliding them across the table. It was obviously a joke, but I totally didn't expect her to take the pen and actually start writing. I leaned in to see what she was putting down, but she just wrote, servitude contract and contracting party, Chloe, leaving a massive blank space right in the middle. She smiled warmly and handed the paper back to me. The terms in the middle. I will leave those for you, my dear creditor, to fill in yourself. Doesn't that mean I can do whatever I want with you? I smirked. Then what kind of service are you looking for, Master Creditor? She flashed a mischievous smile. I leaned in close. My warm breath brushed against her ear, making her shiver at the ticklish sensation. Forget about services, I whispered. But I do have one absolute command. Tonight. Chloe gulped nervously, her heart pounding. At 10 p.m., you are going to bed, and you are not allowed to get up before 7 a.m. tomorrow. I am making breakfast. She glanced at me in total shock, before a massive wave of warmth filled her chest, and she smiled radiantly. As you command, Master Creditor. Once night fell, under my strict orders, Chloe obediently crawled into bed. I handed her a glass of hot milk. It is totally fine if you don't lock the door, I said as I backed out of the room. She stared at the doorknob, ultimately choosing to leave it unlocked. Back in my own bedroom, I let out a heavy, exhausted sigh of relief. In my past life, I threw myself into solving cases like a madman, desperate to numb the crushing guilt. I even rejected the easy jobs my mentor lined up for me, terrified that if I slowed down for even a second, the memories of her would catch up. But now, I am back to 10 years ago. She is safe, and I am finally free. With that comforting thought, I drifted into a deep, peaceful sleep. In my dream, I was thrown back to a corner of my childhood park. A tiny girl, looking fragile as a porcelain doll, was sobbing her eyes out. Why are you still crying when you are already a big kid? I am not crying, she sniffled. Did someone bully you? Come on, I will make them apologize. The little girl frantically pulled him back, insisting nobody else was to blame. Little Ethan pulled out a clean handkerchief his mom had packed and gently wiped her tears. What are you staring at me for, you little dummy? He made a goofy face into a nearby puddle, finally making the little girl crack a smile through her tears. Ha ha! My name is Ethan. I play here all the time. If you ever feel sad again, you can always come find me. Hearing his mother calling, the little boy dashed off into the distance. Ring, 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 ring. The alarm clock blared, and my eyes snapped open. I rubbed my face, muttering, Why the hell did I just dream about my childhood? At that exact same moment, Chloe was waking up from that very same dream of the park. One of my parents is going to leave me, she had cried. Stop crying, little Ethan had replied. I thought it was something serious. My mom and dad both left me, and you don't see me crying. In the dream, little Chloe had just looked at him in total shock. She never expected this little boy to be so incredibly strong. Wrapping her arms tightly around him, she found herself being the one comforted instead. What'll you do if your parents ever leave you? Just live with my grandparents? I heard the adults say they'll come right back once they finish their business. But they say that after mom and dad leave, they're going to start a brand new family, and then they won't want me anymore. I'm just so scared. The little boy gently wiped away her tears once more and grabbed her hand. Then you can just come live at my house. My house is super big. I heard my mom and dad say they really wanted a daughter anyway, so we can all be one big family. Those innocent, sweet words spoken by a child made little Chloe's tears burst out like a broken dam all over again. It turned out there was actually still a warm place for her in this world. But tragically, he never showed up again after that day. She had left behind a heartfelt note filled with gratitude right at the spot where the two of them usually met. As the dream finally faded, Chloe watched his back slowly disappear into the distance. Waking up, she realized her eyes were already swimming in tears. I gently knocked on the guest room door, pulling Chloe out of her sleep. Down at the dining table, I had specially brewed up a warm bowl of red date, red bean, barley, and lily bulb porridge to nourish her energy and blood. Watching her take tiny, careful sips like a little kitten afraid of burning its tongue, I couldn't help but just stare blankly at her. Why are you looking at me like that? She mumbled softly. I just realized you look exactly like someone I knew, a little girl I met when I was super young. We played together for barely 2 weeks before she suddenly moved away. I really think you look exactly like her. Did she not even say goodbye to you? Hearing Chloe's quiet follow-up question, I got completely lost in my memories. Not in person. I only found out she left when I saw a torn-up little note she had left behind. The heavy rain had completely ruined it, leaving only half the page readable. I stared intensely at Chloe, finding her resemblance to that little girl from my past becoming way too striking to ignore. I asked if she had ever run into a little boy at a park when she was little, but she just flashed this mischievous smile, playfully telling me to guess. Right then, Chloe's mood became visibly ecstatic. She finally understood exactly why I hadn't reacted at all when I first heard her name. It was all because that old note with her name on it had been completely shredded and destroyed by the rain. Knowing that I had actually remembered her this entire time, she totally dropped her shy act, acting all playful and refusing to give me a straight answer. I guess you aren't her then, because you are way more beautiful than she ever was. Watching her tiny face instantly turn tomato red with pure embarrassment, I flashed a winning smirk. After finishing our breakfast, I got everything ready to take her out and buy her a brand new cell phone. After all, I couldn't keep her glued to my side 24 hours a day. At the exact same time, I was racking my brain on how to hit up my mom, who was far away, to borrow some cash. Between the new clothes and the high-end bedding I bought last night, my credit card limit was completely maxed out. I had just sent a text asking to borrow $5,000, but I definitely didn't expect my mom to instantly wire over $50,000 instead. Staring at my mom's text that read, "If that's not enough, just let me know. Make sure you date this girl seriously." I could only let out a totally helpless, wry smile. It looks like Auntie Sharon had already snitched to my mom about me bringing a girl out shopping for undergarments. But hey, with this massive financial backup, my confidence instantly shot right through the roof. Since we have nothing else to do today, is there anywhere you really want to go? I kind of want to take a nice stroll around the Old Town Park. Wait, Old Town Park? Wasn't that the exact same place where that little girl and I first met back in the day? Piecing together what she just said, her background of divorced parents, starting new families, and remembering her cute little habit of looking away whenever she lied and pausing whenever she spoke. Every single detail aligned perfectly at this exact moment. A massive, violent wave of emotion crashed into my chest. In my past life, when she tragically died, my entire world had completely crumbled into darkness, leaving me with absolutely zero time to look back and recall my childhood. But now, thinking about it carefully, she really was that exact same little girl from back then. That park over there is actually perfect for flying kites. Let's grab one on the way, and after we fly it, we can hit up the food street and check it out. Sure. I've actually never flown a kite before. Seeing her light up with pure childlike joy just because she got to fly a simple kite, my heart completely swelled with tenderness. What was just a basic daily routine for ordinary people was a super rare treat for her. I swore a silent, fierce oath in my heart right then and there. No matter how much of college she had missed out on, I was going to help her make up for every single second of it. Let's go get you that cell phone first before we head out. If you don't have a phone and something happens, how is a creditor like me supposed to track you down? Hearing my completely clumsy, totally lame excuse, she just giggled brightly and nodded her head. Pushing open the heavy glass doors of the phone shop, the clerk excitedly pulled off a display cover, enthusiastically recommending a cute pink phone that was quote-unquote perfect for sweet young couples. Hearing that term, Chloe shyly tugged at the corner of her light green skirt. I pointed straight at that rosy pink phone, which was priced at 4,880 yuan. Seeing her completely freeze up while staring blankly at the pricey tag, I just reached out directly and totally blocked her view with my hand. Keep your eyes where they belong. As your creditor, I call the shots here. The clerk brought over a display phone, walking us through the steps to snap the perfect selfie. The moment the camera lens caught the sharp angle of my profile, Chloe nervously mashed the shutter button, but her shaky hands only captured half of my collar. I chuckled. Selfies only look good when you're this close. I leaned in tight and wrapped my hand over hers. The raw warmth of my palm seeped right through her skin, melting away the tension. With my cheek barely grazing her temple, I clicked the shutter. The screen flashed bright, freezing a moment where she was tilting her head up just slightly. My face was practically buried in her hair, while the shop's glass window behind us cast a perfect reflection of our tangled shadows. To anyone walking by, we looked exactly like a couple secretly snapping photos on a date. After buying the phone, the clerk offered to engrave our initials for free. Then engrave this, I told him, GNCM. Chloe stared at those 4 letters, completely baffled. The first few were obviously my initials, but what on earth did those last 2 letters mean? Walking out of the store, her mind was so far away she nearly face-planted over the doorstep. I shot my arm out, catching her tightly against my chest. The sweet, intoxicating scent of her hair instantly filled my senses. Watch your step, silly girl, I teased. Just tell me what it means, she whined. If you don't, it's going to drive me crazy all day. She actually tugged at my sleeve, pouting in a rare display of total cuteness. All right, you win. Aren't I your creditor, though? It stands for master. Though, I guess you could interpret it another way. Chloe gasped. A sudden look of realization washing over her. The second meaning clicked in her brain, and I could practically hear her heart rate skyrocket. Her already pretty pink cheeks flared into a massive, burning blush. Watching her get so flustered, I couldn't help but laugh quietly to myself. She definitely thought those letters stood for my man. I decided to spare her and didn't call her out on it. That mix of teenage insecurity and eager hope made her look incredibly charming right then. Soon we were on a rickety bus, swaying all the way back to the old town. This was the exact place where our childhoods had first crossed paths. I pulled out one of my earbuds and gently tucked it into her ear. Ever heard this track? It's Don't Cry by Zhang Jihua, my absolute favorite. I really love this one. In a split second, a brutal tidal wave of memories crashed into my brain. In my past life, I had played this exact song on an endless loop on countless lonely nights, mourning her tragic death. The lyrics softly sang, "Tonight I bloom like a night-blooming Sirius, withering at the moment of ultimate beauty." Those words always felt like a cruel, twisted prophecy of the dark fate she had suffered. The soulful, heartbreaking melody poured from the speaker. As Chloe listened, silent tears began streaming down her cheeks. Little did I know, in that previous timeline, she had stood on the edge of a rooftop, ready to end it all more times than I could count. The only thing that had ever pulled her back from the ledge was the lingering memory of the boy from her childhood. Her tears right now weren't from sadness. They were a final goodbye to her dark, broken past. Just as I was drowning in my own grief, a soft hand gently brushed against my cheek. Chloe's eyes were filled with an agonizing heartache, looking exactly the way she did when we were kids. Without warning, she threw her arms around my neck, pulling me into a fierce, tender hug. The sudden warmth of the girl holding me perfectly overlapped with the memory of the little kid who used to comfort me in the park. I didn't dare pull away. I just let time completely freeze around us. The bright morning sun flooded through the bus windows, burning away the heavy, suffocating gloom that had haunted both of our hearts. Stepping off the bus, the cool breeze of the old town hit us, carrying the crisp, nostalgic scent of camphor leaves. From the steaming breakfast stalls to the sharp ringing of bicycle bells, absolutely nothing had changed here. We wandered into an alleyway that was absolutely packed with colorful kites. Acting like an excited little kid, Chloe trailed close behind me until we stopped dead in front of a vendor. Her eyes immediately locked onto a stunning peach-pink butterfly kite. "Hey there, you two lovebirds. How about one for each of you?" the vendor called out. "This blue one makes a perfect matching pair," but I smirked. If we're both flying one, how am I supposed to find an excuse to hold her hand? The old vendor was completely caught off guard by my bold joke, while Chloe just covered her mouth and giggled, all of her earlier awkwardness totally melting away. The warm spring breeze whipped across our faces. I sprinted ahead with the kite, showing her exactly how to get it airborne. "Pick up the pace and run," I yelled. Following my lead, the butterfly kite caught a strong gust of wind and shot high into the sky. Chloe threw her head back to watch it fly, a vibrant, unmistakable spark flashing in her eyes that I had never seen before. "Want to give it a shot?" I asked, passing her the spool. Just then, the wind aggressively picked up, making her stumble backward. Taking full advantage of the moment, I wrapped my arms around her from behind, my warm palm pressing firmly over the back of her hand. As our fingertips lightly brushed together, I took a deep breath, taking in the sweet, fresh scent of jasmine from her hair. "You know, Ethan," she whispered, "I remember when we were kids. You always said the clouds looked just like cotton candy, and that you really wanted to taste them." I smiled, leaning in. "Well, I finally found something even better. It's you. Because your smile is exactly like cotton candy, unbelievably soft and perfectly sweet." Right in the middle of our sweet moment, I suddenly spotted a familiar figure crouching in the shadows. "Jace? What the hell are you doing here?" Jace froze, completely caught off guard. "Oh, hey, Ethan. Nothing much," he stammered, awkwardly laughing it off and claiming he was just waiting for a friend. But following his intense gaze, the truth was obvious. He was absolutely fixated on a girl with a cute ponytail, bustling around to help at her dad's barbecue stall. Staring at her, a wave of sickening memories washed over me. I suddenly remembered the absolute tragedy that destroyed Jace in my past life. Back then, Jace and that girl fell madly in love, but her father despised him, seeing him as nothing but a worthless school bully. Desperate to prove himself, Jace went to unimaginable lengths. He chopped off his unruly hair, painfully lasered off every single one of his tattoos, cut ties with his old gang, and completely quit smoking. He even swapped his street clothes for crisp, clean-cut outfits. But it wasn't enough. No matter how hard he tried to wipe the slate clean, to her stubborn old man, he was still just a dirty, low-life street thug trying to ruin his precious daughter's life. Absolutely heartbroken for Jace, the girl blew up at her dad, packed her bags, and moved right in with Jace. His sweet mother was thrilled, but she constantly begged the girl to go home and make peace with her family. But who could have predicted what a monster her father actually was? Instead of trying to understand, he dragged the damn police right to their front door. And right there, in front of the entire neighborhood, he viciously cursed Jace out for ruining his daughter's reputation, screaming that he was going to throw him in prison for assault. Jace's frail mother, who was already battling severe kidney failure, couldn't handle the shock. The sheer terror and public humiliation triggered a fatal attack, and she collapsed, dying right there on the spot. The girl's dad was completely paralyzed with shock. He only wanted to scare the kid, never imagining his cruel stunt would literally cost an innocent woman her life. In the blink of an eye, a beautiful romance mutated into a blood-soaked vendetta. His mother was his entire world, his only pillar of support. The blinding grief and pure, unadulterated rage almost made Jace slaughter the man right then and there. The father eventually backed down, begging for forgiveness in a sea of regret. But how the hell could Jace stay with the daughter of the man who literally murdered his mother? He couldn't. In the end, their love shattered, and they walked away from each other forever. Shortly after that nightmare, Jace dropped out of school and vanished from the city like a ghost. Years later, While digging into a brutal case, I stumbled across him again, but the proud guy I knew was gone, replaced by a filthy, insane beggar freezing under a bridge. He just rocked back and forth, endlessly muttering one single sentence: that he had to avenge his mother's death. The agonizing trauma had completely scorched away his sanity. He had even forgotten how to actually get that revenge, doomed to rot away the rest of his pathetic life in a prison of madness. Remembering his blank, broken stare from that time twisted a knife in my gut. The heartbreak I felt was every bit as agonizing as watching Chloe's tragic fate unfold. That's exactly why, even when all the bloody evidence pointed straight at him in my past life, I refused to believe it. He was absolutely not some cold-blooded monster. And since fate handed me a miraculous second chance, there is no way in hell I'm letting history repeat itself. I've made up my mind. I'm handing over the $100,000 reward for the fugitive lead straight to Jace. With the police department officially backing him up like a local hero, that stubborn old man's prejudice will be completely blown out of the water. "What's wrong, Ethan?" Jace asked. "Nothing, man," I smirked. "I'll tell you at school tomorrow." Jace just scratched his head, looking totally clueless. As we were chatting, a teenager walking hand in hand with a little kid suddenly walked past, freezing like a deer in headlights the second he saw me. "Leo, what a coincidence," I called out. "Out shopping with your little brother?" Leo gave a stiff, expressionless nod, clearly struggling to figure out how to act around me. "Hi, big brother Ethan," his little brother Toby chimed in. Unlike Leo, Toby was incredibly sweet. Since I had saved his older brother before, the kid totally worshipped me. "Hey there, Toby. Aren't you a good boy?" I smiled warmly, reaching out to gently ruffle the kid's hair, but Chloe's sharp instincts picked up on something deeply unsettling. The moment my hand touched Toby, Leo's eyes practically ignited with an uncontrollable, twisted fanaticism. He was boiling with a dark, suffocating jealousy, desperate to rip his little brother away so he could take his place by my side. This sick, overwhelming obsession literally made his entire body tremble on the spot. Chloe was totally creeped out by his bizarre, unhinged glare. She honestly couldn't tell if it was dripping with pure malice or just some incredibly disturbing flavor of admiration. Feeling her eyes on him, Leo abruptly snapped his neck toward her, shooting Chloe a terrifying, razor-sharp glare. Startled out of her mind, Chloe practically jumped sideways, ducking behind me and gripping my sleeve for dear life. I casually glanced up at Leo, and just like that, the crazy intensity vanished. He instantly completely reverted back to his usual gloomy, dead-eyed self. Honestly, I had no clue what the hell went on inside that kid's messed up head. "Anyway, you guys keep looking around," I said smoothly. "I'm stuffed, so I'm gonna head out first." Leo gave another awkward, robotic nod, leaning forward just a fraction. I turned back. "Chloe, are you sure you're completely full? We've got school tomorrow, so you better go to bed early tonight. Because I am absolutely not making you a late-night snack." Hearing those domestic words, Leo's pupils instantly blew wide open in pure shock. He opened his mouth, desperately wanting to ask something, but ultimately snapped it shut. "I'm full," Chloe beamed. "Let's go." Chloe looked genuinely spooked. Grabbing my hand, she practically dragged me out of the bustling food street. We didn't stop until a little kid tugged at his older brother's sleeve, whining, "Big bro, big bro." Only then did Leo finally tear his gaze away from the intersection, flashing a rare, surprisingly gentle smile at the kid. Back at my place, Chloe realized she had eaten way too much. She slumped on the couch, gently rubbing her stuffed tummy. I sat down next to her, took her tiny hands in mine, and stacked them over her stomach. Step by step, I showed her how to rub in slow, clockwise circles. Seeing how focused and patient I was, Chloe's cheeks flushed bright red. This warm, cozy vibe gave her a level of comfort she had never once felt in her biological parents' toxic house. I got up, headed straight to the kitchen, and whipped up a glass of honey mint lemonade to help settle her stomach. But sitting there on the sofa, a sudden wave of crippling anxiety hit Chloe. She was terrified of losing this newfound happiness. Years of mental abuse from her real family made her think this dreamlike moment was just a fragile, deceptive bubble. She was absolutely dreading that she would wake up tomorrow and be forced back into that ice-cold hellhole. I instantly noticed her panicking. Walking back over, I leaned in and gently pressed my forehead against hers just to check if she was running a fever. Once I made sure she wasn't sick, I settled right back down beside her. "Here," I said softly, "honey lemonade with a little mint. It'll help you digest." I scooped up a little bit with a ceramic spoon and gently brought it right up to her lips. She was super embarrassed at first and tried to take the glass, but I used the excuse that she was too full to move. So, I stubbornly fed it to her, spoonful by spoonful, with every single sip. A soothing, sweet, and sour warmth slid down her throat, settling perfectly in her stomach. Watching how gentle I was, without a single trace of annoyance, Chloe's eyes completely welled up with tears. The heavy trauma and deep insecurity that had choked her heart for years were slowly melting away, replaced by this overwhelming sense of safety. That night, for the first time in forever, Chloe slept incredibly peacefully. In her dreams, she saw her late grandparents. With tears of pure joy, she told them that she had finally met an amazing, wonderful guy who actually cared for her. As the dream ended, she tightly held my hand, waving goodbye to her grandparents up in the sky. All those years of deep psychological scars were finally beginning to heal. Her entire mindset was shifting, finally finding that long-awaited sense of comfort and absolute peace. The next morning, Chloe woke up early just to make breakfast. Watching her happily bustle around the kitchen, I realized she looked like a completely different person. Her entire vibe had completely flipped. She was so much brighter, bursting with genuine optimism. Once we demolished breakfast, we threw on our school uniforms and walked out the door, side by side. "Hey Chloe, let's carve out some time in the next few days to hit up your place and move your stuff over." The second she heard the word home, she practically jumped, her fingertips instantly clenching into fists. She had absolutely no clue how to ever face those two broken, messed up families again. I reached out and squeezed her freezing left hand super tight, letting the warmth of my palm seep right into hers. "Don't sweat it," I told her. "You don't have to worry about your family trying to stop us. I've got a surefire way to shut them down. Ethan, I really don't want to go back there ever again." She squeezed my hand back, her eyes practically overflowing with pure trust and desperate longing. "Trust me, I am never letting you go back. Besides, you still owe me a massive debt right now, so you are not allowed to just slip away until it's fully paid off." Chloe smiled brightly and nodded. Having finally found the absolute brightest light of her life, she unlocked the courage to ditch that suffocating darkness for good. Later that day, Chloe and I rolled into school together. The classroom was already buzzing, echoing with the chaotic sound of students doing their morning reading. Literally, the second we sat down at our desks, my classmate Sophie leaned all the way over, her face practically glowing with juicy gossip. "Hey, hey, I heard you two hit up the night market together yesterday, and rumor has it, things were looking incredibly sweet. Spill it. Is it true?" Chloe's face instantly went totally red. Caught off guard, I reached right out and playfully pinched Sophie's cheek, catching the golden morning sunlight. "All right, who did you hear that from? Confess right now." Ow, okay. "It was Toby, Leo's little brother," she yelped. "He swore he saw you on a hardcore date with a totally gorgeous girl." I just sighed, letting go of her cheek in absolute defeat. Overhearing the spicy gossip, a bunch of the guys in class started catcalling and hyping it up. I shot them one dead serious glare, and the whole room finally shut up and got back to reading. But suddenly, a well-dressed, middle-aged woman who definitely still had her sharp charm appeared right at the classroom door. I took one quick look at her and my blood ran cold. It was actually Chloe's biological mother. The exact second she showed up, Chloe's entire body froze stiff. Acting on pure instinct, she whipped her head around, silently begging me for help. Our homeroom teacher walked over to the door, exchanged some hushed words with the woman, and then turned to face the class. "Chloe, your mother is here to see you." Catching a fierce, reassuring look from my eyes, Chloe took a massive deep breath, stood up tall, and walked straight toward the door. Right as she stepped into the hallway, her mother slapped on a super fake apologetic look, chatting up Mr. Harrison. Mr. Harrison totally fell for it and politely stepped back inside. But sitting there at my desk, my protective glare practically pierced straight through the glass window. Fast forward to school. Standing not too far from the classroom door, Chloe kept her eyes glued to the floor the entire time. Her lips were pressed in a tight, pale line as she just stood there, letting her toxic mother ramble on and on, tearing into her. After what felt like an eternity, Her mother coldly spat out one final, cutting remark, spun on her heel, and marched away. Just this morning, my promise had breathed a little bit of life back into her, but as Chloe slumped back into her seat, her mood had visibly plummeted straight back to rock bottom. She glanced up at me, her eyes swirling with anxiety. I didn't pry or ask any questions. I just looked right back and gave her a firm, reassuring smile. The moment she saw that smile, her rigid shoulders finally dropped a fraction, and the panic in her expression slowly began to wash away. "Chloe, what did your mom want with you?" Sophie asked. "It's nothing, just some boring family stuff. Kids shouldn't pry into adult business," I interrupted. "Look, as soon as morning reading is over, I'm taking you both to the snack shop for an absolute feast. Now, be a good girl and focus on your book." I rolled my eyes and used my textbook to lightly bop Sophie right on her gossiping head. It successfully bailed Chloe out of an awkward situation. But deep down, my mind was racing, already mapping out the very next step of my master plan. Since the toxic shadow of her family was going to follow her everywhere, I had to fight tooth and nail to get the leverage I needed to stay openly by her side and protect her. As the morning reading session wrapped up, I marched straight up to the podium and whispered a bold request right into Mr. Harrison's ear. "At your age, you really need to be focusing on your studies," he warned. "Mr. Harrison, how about we make a little bet?" I countered. "For this week's final exams, if I can smash my way into the top 10 of the entire class, you let me switch seats so I can sit right next to her." The second he heard top 10, Mr. Harrison's calm eyes instantly lit up. He wasn't some stubborn, old-fashioned teacher. If I could channel all my messy teenage rebellion into a relentless drive to study and improve myself, he saw that as an absolute win. "I admire your guts, kid. All right, you make the top 10, and you've got a deal." I smirked and actually pinky swore on it with the guy. Striding back to my desk, I ripped open my English textbook and instantly started cramming like an absolute madman possessed. My deskmate, Caleb, stared at me like I'd grown a second head, shouting that I was acting like an addict going through withdrawal. I completely tuned him out. There was no room for distractions, because this was one fight I absolutely could not afford to lose. The second the bell rang, I made good on my word and dragged Chloe and Sophie to the snack shop. Sophie petty shopped $10 worth of junk food, trying to get revenge on me for pinching her cheek earlier. Seeing that Chloe was still trapped in her own gloomy head, I swiped a lollipop off the shelf and pressed it right into her hand. "Eat something sweet, get your sugar up, it'll make you feel 100 times better. And hey, remember what I told you this morning. After school, I'm going to get everything completely sorted out for you. I promise." Chloe clutched the lollipop tight, took a few shaky, deep breaths, and finally flashed me a radiant, genuine smile that didn't look forced at all. But just as we stepped out of the store, my eyes locked onto Jace, slouching casually against the flower bed. His eyes were completely glued to a girl with a single ponytail nearby, oblivious to the tragedy hanging over his head as she helped out with the barbecue. He was staring so intensely at her that he didn't even notice us approaching from behind. "Buddy, if you keep staring like that, you're going to get flagged as a total creep sooner or later." Jace snapped back to reality and stammered out, Ethan!" The moment he saw us, he grinned. "Hello, sister-in-law," he blurted out, which made Chloe blush a deep, bright red. I told Chloe and Sophie to head back to the classroom first, then pulled up a chair right beside Jace. "Since I caught you red-handed, let me give you a pro tip, brother. Chasing a girl takes just one thing: absolute dedication. But honestly, I'm not worried about Daisy rejecting you. It's her extremely traditional father. He is absolutely going to look down on your whole school bad boy vibe." Hearing that, Jace's face instantly dropped, a heavy shadow of worry washing over him. My chest tightened. In my past life, it was exactly because of this brutal, stubborn prejudice that Jace's mother suffered a fatal heart attack from the sheer stress, dying right on the spot. And Jace, he eventually spiraled into absolute madness. But in this life, I absolutely refuse to stand by and watch that nightmare repeat itself. I have a bulletproof way to make him change his view of you. I happen to have a solid lead on a wanted fugitive with a $100,000 bounty. Go report it straight to the police station. Once they bag him, all this massive credit will be yours. When the time comes, with an official police endorsement and a commendation from the school, if Daisy's dad still tries to nitpick your appearance, you can just look him in the eye and say you went undercover as a delinquent to help solve major crimes. Tell him you are blending in among the street thugs. He will absolutely look at you in a completely new light." Jace's jaw dropped. "Holy crap, Ethan. This is an incredible move." I patted his shoulder and smiled. "We will split that $100,000 reward 50-50. You take 50,000, and the crushing financial pressure for your mom's hospital bills will finally ease up a bit. Plus, you'll have way more free time to actually chase after the girl. Trust me, this intel is completely reliable. Are you in?" Jace's eyes burned with fierce loyalty. "Brothers are close at heart, man. With those words of yours, say no more. I am in." Just as Jace and I locked in the final details of our master plan, I noticed Daisy gathering her courage and walking straight toward us. I tactfully slipped away into the corner to watch the show in secret. Standing at 6'1", Jace, the tough guy, was actually sweating and shaking in front of Daisy like a misbehaving elementary schooler, even stammering over his words. It turned out, Daisy had once called the cops to help clear his name when he was falsely accused, cementing the undeniable spark between them. I always expected the rumored school bully to be some ferocious, untamable beast, but who would have guessed he was actually a pure-hearted, stuttering softy. Watching Jace follow right behind her, step by step, my fiercely protective heart finally took a breath. As I spun around, I caught Leo standing quietly just a few feet away. "I am so sorry about last Friday night." "Were you okay after all that?" he asked. "I'm totally fine," I replied. "Here, this is yours. I sent the jacket to the dry cleaners. I will give it back to you the second I pick it up." I took the freshly washed handkerchief from him and gave his shoulder a reassuring pat, telling him to come to me anytime he ever needed help in the future, before I spun around and headed straight back to class. The second I walked into the room, I playfully snatched the chocolate Sophie had stashed away in her desk drawer. Amidst Sophie's dramatic, whiny protests, I handed the very last piece over to Chloe. Chloe just smiled gently, snapped the chocolate right in half, and shared a piece with Sophie. The whole classroom was just buzzing with that bright, vibrant energy of youth. Settling back into my seat, I whipped out my phone and pulled up a fax document from my mom. It was a housekeeper employment contract. The terms of the contract were crystal clear: a monthly salary of $6,000, completely free room and board included, and absolutely zero tasks that would mess with her physical or mental health. Staring at this contract, I let out a massive, long sigh of relief. This wasn't just some basic employment form. It was an ironclad legal shield I had custom-tailored just for Chloe. As long as she signed on the dotted line, proving she was over 18 and making an income sufficient enough to live entirely on her own, her terrible parents' custody rights could no longer be used to interfere with or abuse her ever again. Since her awful families couldn't give her a single ounce of warmth, I was going to use the law to personally drag her out of that dark, toxic quagmire. Once I double-checked that the contract was absolutely flawless, I fired off the detailed dossier on the fugitive straight to Jace. Looking out at the bright sunshine streaming through the window, I just knew it, the brand new life waiting for Chloe and me was finally about to truly begin. But right after the final bell, just as we reached the school gates, Chloe's body suddenly went completely rigid. She took a quick step sideways, instinctively hiding behind my back. I followed her terrified gaze. Standing right there was her biological father, Richard. I figured it out instantly. Because Chloe hadn't gone home for 2 whole days and her mom couldn't track her down at school this morning, she must have gone crawling to her dad. "I have got your back through absolutely everything," I whispered. "If you want to talk to him, go ahead. If you don't, I will handle it. You do not have to worry about a single thing." Chloe's pale cheeks looked as fragile as crumpled rice paper blowing in the spring breeze. She took 2 deep breaths, slowly forcing her tense muscles to relax, and kept walking forward right by my side. We deliberately acted like Richard didn't exist and walked straight out the school gates. However, we hadn't even made it a block before the heavy thud of rushing footsteps charged up behind us. "Chloe, wait up. Your mother says you haven't been home for 2 or 3 days. What on earth is going on here?" Richard demanded. His mouth was talking to Chloe, but his shifty eyes were quietly sizing me up from head to toe. Chloe bit her lip, trembling all over, completely unable to say a single word. I didn't hesitate for a second. Right in front of her deadbeat dad, I reached out and firmly grabbed her ice-cold hand. That simple, defiant move left Richard totally frozen on the spot. Chloe also looked at me in pure shock, her eyes swimming with panic. She was deeply terrified her dad would make trouble for me because of it. "What the hell is going on here?" he barked. "You should know full well what is going on," I shot back coldly. On Friday night, during a literal torrential downpour, she didn't even have a home she could step into to get out of the storm. "You tell me, what is going on? Who do you think you are?" he yelled. "I am her classmate. Let go of her hand right now and stay the hell away from our Chloe. In such a massive storm, you would rather watch your own biological daughter get soaked to the bone than take her in for a single night," I scoffed. "How could you possibly call that place her home?" When dealing with this kind of selfish, cold-blooded hypocrite, I had absolutely zero intention of holding back. "You little brat, who the hell do you think you are? Since when is it your place to lecture me? Our family matters are none of your damn business. Let go of her right this second. Or else I will march right up to your teachers and your parents. Fine by me. How about I call my parents right now? If you want them to give you a lecture while we're at it, I wouldn't mind doing that one bit. You are harassing a girl. If you do not let go of her right now, I am calling the cops," he threatened. "Filing a false police report will just get you thrown in a cell. A state agency is not your private security team. I suggest you calm down, sir." Realizing he was completely losing the argument, Richard snapped. He lunged forward, trying to drag Chloe away by brute force. My gaze turned ice cold. I flipped my hand and caught him in a vice-like grip right by the wrist. The tactical grappling techniques I had mastered in the police force during my past life meant my strength was way beyond some ordinary high school kid. Richard let out a pathetic groan of pain. "Now, I am only going to tell you 3 things. You better listen, and listen good. Number 1. Chloe's custody belongs to her mom. You have absolutely zero right to control or even lay a finger on her. Take your damn hand off her, right now. Number 2. When she needed you the most, you just stood there and watched her get tossed out into a massive rainstorm. What kind of nerve do you have showing up here today, acting like you actually care? And number 3, she's a grown adult, fully capable of taking care of herself. She sure as hell doesn't need your fake charity. If there's nothing else, we're heading out to grab some lunch. See you never." With that, I violently slapped his hand away. "If you ever dare to bother her again, I'll march straight to your office and hang a massive banner. Your bosses and coworkers will love hearing all about how you locked your own flesh and blood out in a brutal storm. I'm guessing that wouldn't look too great for your next promotion, right?" I hit him exactly where it hurt. That's the ultimate weakness for a selfish deadbeat like him. Richard froze dead in his tracks, totally speechless. On the walk back home, Chloe kept glancing up at me. She looked at me like I was both familiar and a total stranger, radiating this intense, mature vibe that definitely didn't belong to a normal high school kid. "Hey, I'm really sorry, Chloe. I totally lost my cool back there and completely went off on your dad without even thinking about how you'd feel." A wave of regret suddenly hit me. Toxic or not, he was still her biological dad. Going completely scorched earth on him like that might have just made her feel trapped and conflicted in the middle. "I'm just really glad. I'm so glad," she whispered, gently squeezing my hand. Her fingertips traced softly across my skin as she looked down. "The way you stepped right in front of me and stood up for me without a second of hesitation, even though you're literally just a high schooler. You actually stepped up and looked my dad dead in the eye. I really am so incredibly glad." She finally looked up, and that's when it hit me. Her face was completely covered in tears. I pulled out a handkerchief and softly wiped her red eyes. "Why are you crying if you're so happy?" I asked. She didn't say a word, just flashed me this incredibly bright, beautiful smile. Those tears meant she was finally letting go of her painful past once and for all. And even better, they held the pure joy of a brand new start. Silly girl, crying one second and beaming the next. But hey, there's absolutely nothing wrong with a good cry. Being able to genuinely smile after you cry, that's what true healing looks like. Hearing my soft words, the sharp, painful thorn that had been wedged in Chloe's heart for so long finally melted away completely. Once we got back home, I loaded up 2 massive bowls of taro and pork rib rice from the cooker. "Whoa, this is way too much. I can't finish all this." There's a special type of hunger called "your boss thinks you're starving." Just eat up. Even if you pack on 200 pounds, you'll always have a place here. And if you actually get chubby, worst comes to worst, I'll just be your drill sergeant and train it off you. Don't go torturing yourself just for some perfect figure. Girls are honestly way cuter when they're a bit chubby. Take Sophie, for example. Her cheeks are incredibly squishy and fun to pinch. Wait, so if I eat until I'm chubby, are you going to pinch my face and bully me every single day? I laughed. I could never bring myself to do that to you. Besides, you're officially my employee now. If I bully you, that's literally workplace harassment. If you report me to the labor board, I'd never be able to afford the damages. She giggled. We don't even have a contract. How am I supposed to sue you? Who says we don't? I put down my bowl and chopsticks, walked straight over to the fax machine, and slid a document across the table. Your lifetime contract of servitude has been sitting right here waiting for you. Just sign it after we finish eating. Chloe stared at the names printed on the contract, completely stunned. Wait, you actually told your mom? It's only legally binding if she's involved. I nodded. Did she say anything else? She asked nervously. Oh, she sure did. She said, if you don't take exceptional care of me, she's firing you. Especially when it comes to this specific clause, taking care of my daily living arrangements. Like, for example, if the bed sheets are way too cold at night, you're officially on duty to warm them up for me. That is totally a rigged clause. That kind of VIP service definitely requires extra pay. Seeing how she wasn't so tense and timid anymore and was actually firing jokes right back at me, I honestly couldn't help but laugh out loud. This so-called contract was her ultimate ticket to freedom, finally placing her completely and safely under my wing. For the first time, the air around our dining table actually felt warm and like home. Chloe flipped through the stack of papers on the table. She totally thought I was just messing around, but soon realized the clauses covered every single tiny detail of her well-being. It was astonishingly legit. No way. Are you seriously going to pay me the exact salary written on here? Hey, once it's signed in black and white, it's 100% legally binding. If I don't pay you and you sue me later on, I'll be hit with multiple times that amount in heavy damages. No way. That just won't do. Let's just scrap this whole contract idea, Ethan. Watching her panicked expression, I took a slow, calm sip of my milk. I already had the perfect plan mapped out in my head. This contract isn't just us playing house behind closed doors, I told her. Its real purpose? It's our absolute shield against whatever insane trouble your parents might drag our way in the future. The second she heard the word parents, I caught the tiny, terrified flinch of her shoulders. Her wide eyes were swimming with pure, helpless confusion. My parents? What do they have to do with this? She stammered. Look, I said, even though you just turned 18, without a stable income, you are still completely trapped under their absolute control. But, according to Article 18 of the Civil Code, as long as you have a stable income that fully supports your livelihood, you are legally recognized as having full capacity for civil conduct. I quickly swiped open my phone, pulled up the exact legal statute, and slid the screen right in front of her face. Simply put, I explained, as long as you have this job, you hold the absolute right to reject any toxic interference forced on you by your parents. If they try to coerce you again, you can use the law to completely protect yourself. Wait, is that really true? An outsider could never begin to imagine the invisible, bloodless, freezing domestic violence that had once backed this poor girl into such a desperate, suffocating corner. But staring at that legal clause right now, I finally saw the heavy, dark gloom in her eyes completely vanish into thin air. She was suddenly radiating an unprecedented, bright vitality. Now you see the perks, right? I smirked. Be a good girl, and sign on the dotted line after we finish eating. But $6,000 a month is way too much. My mom only makes $3,000 a month. I can't even do a proper housekeeper's job. How about we just cut it in half? I chuckled. Silly girl, you are eating my food and sleeping under my roof. Won't I just end up collecting all this money right back from you anyway? This big number is just for the outsiders to look at. In the end, all the money comes right back to me. She let out a long sigh. Phew. Then I'm totally relieved. Seeing her instantly drop her guard, I watched as she started greedily wolfing down the pork rib rice in her bowl. It was as if even the plain grains of rice had suddenly turned incredibly sweet. I couldn't resist throwing in another tease. I'm just messing with you, you know. I won't short you a single penny of that salary. If you really think it's too much cash, then all our household expenses will just come straight out of your paycheck from now on. Let me thoroughly experience what it feels like to be a kept man. She giggled brightly. All right. I, Chloe, promised to use my very own salary to take care of Ethan for the rest of his natural life. We even recorded a silly video as solid proof while we ate and drank. Right after dinner, she signed that contract in extremely high spirits. She was even humming a cheerful little tune as she playfully but forcefully kicked me right out of the kitchen, pulling on rubber gloves to happily wash all the dishes herself. A comfortable, quiet peace finally returned to the living room. That's when I suddenly remembered the special, soothing herb I had brought back from my grandparents' place last night. The sweet elderly couple had told me, placing this right under the pillow helps you sleep so much more soundly. I was just so insanely busy yesterday that I completely forgot all about it. I strolled right into the guest room. The bed had already been meticulously made by her, and a faint, sweet fragrance lingered softly in the air. I walked straight up to the bedside, casually lifting her fluffy pillow. But my gaze froze instantly in pure shock. A cold, sharp fruit knife lay perfectly quiet beneath the pillow. My pupils contracted sharply in utter horror. This blade, and the one the medical examiner in my past life deduced to be the exact murder weapon that killed her. They were an almost perfect match. This was definitely not a knife from my own kitchen. From the very moment she was roaming the dark streets in that fierce storm, all the way to coming here, she had kept this knife tightly hidden on her person. Countless horrific scenes from my past life exploded frantically inside my spinning mind. The possibility of suicide was absolutely ruled out back then, because the angle of her fatal wound was completely wrong. But if the murder weapon itself was actually something she brought along, then all those shady people whose suspicions I had previously dismissed just because they weren't carrying a weapon at the time, the bullied Leo, the street thugs, the passing vagrant, the delivery driver, or even literally any random person who just brushed past her in the dark. Since the deadly weapon was actually on her own person, then absolutely anyone passing through that exact area on the night of the crime could have snatched the knife and committed the murder. In a single heartbeat, all of my previous, careful deductions were completely overturned and shattered into pieces. Ethan, about this knife. I just finished washing the dishes. She had quietly appeared at the doorway at some unknown point. Seeing me standing frozen there in a total daze with her pillow in my hand, and then spotting the exposed fruit knife resting on the bed, an extreme panic instantly welled up deep in her eyes. She was deeply, desperately terrified that I would misunderstand her intentions. "Hey, it's okay," I said softly. "You really don't need to explain anything to me. For a young girl out on her own, having this kind of sharp safety awareness is actually a good thing." I reached out and pulled her tightly into my arms, feeling every bit of her fearful stiffness and quiet helplessness against my chest. But meanwhile, behind my deep gaze, my brain was frantically sorting through the massive, twisted mountains of case information from my past life. In this life, I swear on my soul, I will absolutely never let her brutal tragedy repeat itself.